Okay. Yep. It's live right now. And you can see how many viewers, if there's anybody that clicks in, and then when it's done, you just touch the live stream or the end stream.
I feel like I need to say, like, I'm ready for my close-up. Is it all set?
We're live.
Oh, I'm live. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, once again, welcome to everybody. I'm glad I wasn't making the, Again, I'm so glad to be with you today, and so I'm going to share a few things with you with respect to the transition experience. The transition experience, not the process, the experience itself, which will include some of the logistical pieces, the mechanics of it. But initially, I want to focus upon that which I lifted up in my sermon, and that is about identity. Transition is a time for you to establish your identity. From whence have you come? Where are you now? And where is God calling you to go? From whence have you come? Where are you now? And where is God calling you to go? And so I'd like to lift up the 23rd Psalm as a way to kind of prime that pump, if you will, to engage you in that type of conversation. Because the 23rd Psalm uses a series of very powerful images and metaphors to paint a picture of the emotional spectrum that we all experience, as well as the experience of church from time to time, lifting up various images. For example, I'll lift up the 23rd Psalm for you now. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. Now again, the reason that I lift that up is because it gives voice to the emotional spectrum that we experience in life, as well as places emotionally that we might be with our church life along life's journey. For example, looking at the image of green pastures. When I say green pasture, in fact, y'all can look outside and see green pastures. So, but what feeling comes up in you when I say green pasture? You experience a feeling of what? Peace and calm. Peace and calm. So, give me an example, just one example, of a time in the life of Christ Church Chapter when you were experiencing peace and calm. Was that?
Often, I say.
You said often?
Yes.
Okay, often. But what did it look like? What did it look like? This is, I'm feeling peaceful and calm. What am I experiencing at Christ Church?
It's that's serenity within itself. Just the passing time that this church has been here, that people have passed through it, it's almost like a gift.
Okay.
Those who come in.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yes.
When John and I got married, Kirby sang.
Okay. There you go. There you go. And they're still together. And they are acknowledging you as a gift. So praise God for that. So that's one example. Looking at the image of, he leads me beside the still waters. I love going to Martha's Vineyard. And one of the reasons I love going there is because I love to go to the boatyard and literally sit by the dock of the bay and just watch the glassine water. It is so still. And it's so refreshing to me. So when I say stillness, sitting beside some still waters, what feeling does that evoke in you? I say still waters and you feel what? Calm. You feel calm. You want to exhale. See, I felt that even through the mask. You want to exhale. All right, very good. So Christ Church when you exhale? Give me an example.
You said agitated?
No, we did not. I said agitated, yeah. I said exhale. Exhale. When you exhale, like, what were you experiencing? When you what?
I think it would be to come and find what we expect to find, our priests and our service.
Okay.
And music.
To regather.
What is normal,
Yeah.
or what we would consider normal.
To regather. Thank you. Yes. Yes.
Make you feel emptiness and clearing everything on the world out, so I can just focus on my connection with Jesus.
Okay. All right.
That's how.
All right. Thank you. So let's build on it. The restoration of a soul. If something has been restored, what's happened to it?
It has been
The change. You said what?
broken.
Broken and put back together again. Broken and put back together again. How has that manifested itself at Christ Church? Have you ever felt like, we've been kind of broken at this, but we feel like we're being put back together again? Outside of the fact that I'm here with you on this day. No. For real. Felt broken, but now feel restored, a sense of restoration.
Happened many times. It's happened many times.
Happened many times. Give me just one example.
I felt restored when we were able to come back to the church
After COVID?
Yes.
Okay. COVID.
Yeah.
Very good. What was the one that you were doing?
Well, very similar to that, just that it was such a long thing, because not only because of COVID, but because just as we were coming into this situation where we might be able to regather in this building, we had a massive restoration that actually had to happen. The whole thing had to be repainted, and it we had mold remediation, everything here had to be repainted, and we did not get back into our building for over a year. Since it was shut down a little over a year ago. And so it's been kind of like a 1-2 kind of punch for this congregation.
A sucker punch.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so coming back into the building was huge on that respect. It wasn't just the COVID restrictions, it wasn't just the regathering, but it was the actually being restored.
Actual restoration.
Yeah.
Thank you. Wow. Powerful pieces of history. So let's build on that. The last metaphor that we're going to look at is walking through the valley of the shadow of death. First of all, the feeling. When I say the valley of the shadow of death, it brings up a feeling as well. Fear. And what? Unknown. Excellent. So give me an example of a time in which, here at Christ Church, we were kind of fearful. We felt like, we don't know about this. Yes.
For me, it was when Father Chris texted me on the 28th and said he had been diagnosed with COVID, and we didn't know what was going to happen to him.
When Father Chris was diagnosed with COVID. And he didn't know, we didn't know, nobody knew what the end was going to look like. Very fearful. I lift up that one in particular, and I must share with you. I need to stay here. People tease me as I go out to various parishes. They say, you're very Baptist-Palian in that you got this Baptist thing going on, you got this Episcopal thing going on, you kind of mix it together. So see, I'm a walker too. But anyway, that's the thing. I lift up the valley of the shadow of death in that the scripture says we walk through it. You're not supposed to receive mail there. You walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And that's the key point. Because sometimes parishes can get stuck in their fear, in their anxiety about the unfamiliar, about the unknown. They can get stuck. So I lift that up for your reflection. Again, the reason that I raised the 23rd Psalm is because it does give some very powerful images that invites us into an internal and a communal conversation about who we are, from whence we have come, where we are now, and where we're going. So, with that being said, I'll lift up now a little bit about the logistics of things because I know that you're all just chomped up at it trying to figure out. So what is this going to look like? What's it going to look like? What's it going to look like? Well, this is what it's going to look like. Typically, after your priest has departed, the very next Sunday, you have the transition officer of the diocese to come and to be with you, to preside, to preach, et cetera, et cetera. So you can check that box, so that's me. All right? So you've done that. All right? You've already started checking boxes. So what's going to happen now is that you're going to develop a type of rota for supply priests to come in for X amount of time. X amount of time, maybe 1 to 2 months. That amount of time will be determined by my ability to get an interim to come in here and to serve you, all right? And not just any interim. I want an interim who is going to not only be qualified, but who's going to have a skill set to meet you where you are, After having gone through a restoration process like what you're just talking about, no, I cannot have some bulldozer come in here talking about whatever crazy stuff. No. And I've had to have these types of conversations with some of potential applicants that, okay, yeah, you look really good on paper. This is really nice. I don't get the sense you know how to listen to everybody. Because every time we've had conversations, it's really been a monologue or a soliloquy. And I found myself trying to jump in. And I go, this is a group of people who have just lost their pastor. And so there's grieving that is going on one level or another. There is grief, there's profound loss that's going on many different levels. And so I want to make sure that that skill set is there as well. So I'm looking for an interim. As far as an interim, I need the skills, I need the qualifications, and their understanding of what an interim is supposed to do. An interim is supposed to prepare ye the way for the next rector. One of the major pieces does deal with the whole loss and grief piece, because that's very, very real. It's very real. And as I go out to the 80 plus parishes that I work with, one of the things that I've heard from some parishioners is, well, we're okay. You know, like she or he is gone, but we're okay. And I have to remind them, here's the deal. You cannot heal what you cannot feel. You cannot heal what you cannot feel. And if you deny what you are feeling, trust and believe it is going to manifest itself in the most horrific way as time passes along the way. So being able to identify that stuff so that things don't become elephants that are walking around in the room is key. So your interim is going to help you in the healing process in the midst of grief and loss. All right? The interim will also will use objective eyes, third-party eyes to come in and look at various systems here in the parish with respect to finances, with respect to various ministries, with respect to just the overarching feeling here at Christ Church Chapter Co. To come in, make suggestions, do some things that might require a heavy lift. You know, that happens from time to time. And to just come in once again and prepare for the arrival of the next rector. All right. So now your interim has come on board. Wonderful. Now we have a search committee. The search committee is going to be appointed by the vestry. The vestry appoints the search committee with a chair, with a search chair. And our chairs, there's key. And so, the vestry is going to appoint the search committee. The search committee will be tasked with a couple of things to check the boxes. One of them will be the completion of what is known as a parish vitality assessment. How many of you all attended the diocesan convention for 2020? Not this last one in January, but one last year. Oh, wonderful. Well, I won't quiz you. These are the 5 questions. No. During that convention, the strategic plan for the diocese was rolled out. All right. There were 3 major areas of that strategic plan: formation, revitalization, and justice. Formation, revitalization, and justice. Out of the revitalization area, there was birthed that which is known as a parish vitality assessment. The parish vitality assessment is just that. It's an assessment of the vitality of a given parish. How does that break down? There's 7 points. There's 7 methods, if you will, that are used in the seven vital signs, what they're really focused on. 7 vital signs that are used in the parish vitality assessment. They include, does the parish share a clear and compelling mission of drawing people to Jesus? Does the parish have a clear path of discipleship that fosters spiritual growth for all ages? Does the parish provide uplifting and inviting worship experiences? Does the parish actively bless the local community with ministry offerings? Does the parish welcome and connect new people in dynamic and life-giving ways? Does the parish have capable leadership committed to personal growth, building leadership skills and spiritual practices? And finally, does the parish engage in healthy and sustainable financial practices? Those are some of the 7 vital signs, if you will, for a parish as have been identified in the strategic plan for the diocese. Your search committee is going to develop some sort of an instrument, be it a survey, be it gathering together in small groups, however it might look, to gather that type of information, that type of input from you in order to complete the parish vitality assessment. Once they have completed that, they will submit that to me. Once the search committee has completed that, they've gathered all your information, they will submit that to me and I will take a look at it using my objective eyes. And I will be looking for potential elephants in the room. I shared with the 8 o'clock parishioners that it's been so interesting the way that some parishioners, some search committees have approached this whole search process, that I get some emails cloaked in this mystery late at night, like 2 o'clock in the morning. One was, how honest we really have to be. Because we want to make ourselves competitive. We want to make it, so how honest? And I immediately respond in caps, very honest. Very honest, you know. And there was one, and to be very clear, because that in another parish, it was revealed that they hadn't had a junior warden for X amount of years, like 4, 5, 6 years. And so they put that in the parish vitality assessment. We haven't had a junior warden for this many years. And then they went on to the next sentence. I'm like, whoa, what's the deal? What's going on here? Well, when I contacted the search committee, I said, so say a little bit more about this. And I'm kind of notorious for that because I'm also a therapist as well. So say a little bit more about this, the fact that you haven't had a junior warden for like 4 or 5 years. Well, you know, we're an older congregation, we're an older parish, and, you know, we just don't have anybody that has the energy to really step into that role of junior. We just don't have anybody. Nobody really wants to do that. They just don't have the energy. Well, as the conversation got deeper and deeper, it was revealed the reason nobody wants to step into that particular role is because the last junior warden that you had raised so much that everybody was turned off about the role, the vestry, everything. And people were bound then to determine, I'm not going to get involved with them. So it was really all about, it wasn't so much about the energy of the people as much as it was about the development of healthy relationship with the people. That was that. So what I invited that particular parish to do in their parish vitality assessment is state the fact that you haven't had a junior warden in X amount of years, and then state what you're doing to address that situation, which is, one, being aware that we have some relationship development issues that we really need to work on, and we are doing the following things to address them. Priests love that, because it lets the priest know that you are self-aware, Parishes that want to present these beautiful parish profiles that are profiles of the sanctuary just outside of the pearly gates. They don't get much energy. Okay? Priests want to know the real deal about who you are. Last year, in calendar year 2020, I did 4 dissolutions. And a dissolution is a dissolution between clergy and parish. And for all 4 of those dissolutions, the priest approached me at the end and said, you know, if I had known then what I know now, I would have never taken that. So it is incumbent, it is extremely important, and it is incumbent upon parishes that are in transition to be extremely honest about this. And I'm preaching this gospel to everybody. I've got 23 parishes that are currently in transition, even as we speak. 23. Yeah, so keep me up there, add me to the credit. It doesn't have to be first, please put it on. So it's very important. The other piece that I want to share with you is that right now, the way things are, it's a priest market. I got 23 openings. I don't have 23 priests that are available to do that. And so it's a priest's market. It's a priest market. So we want to be very honest. So wrapping it up with respect to the parish vitality assessment, when the search committee comes out to you and engages you in whatever instrument they use, as far as a survey or small groups, whatever, please engage them. Give your input, so that they can bring that back. I can take a look at it, get that thing signed off. Once that has been completed, then the search committee is going to work on their OTM, their Office of Transition Ministry Parish Profile. That's where they break down into narrative sections various aspects about life at Christ Church Technical. How do you handle conflict? What do you do in the neighborhood? How do you take care of yourself? How do you take care of your clergy? X amount of this, about 11 questions, all right? In addition to the front end, which is the financial piece, the compensation piece, that the vestry provides to the search committee to just plug in those numbers. The vestry determines what that compensation package will look like, because the vestry will know what you have. And there's also a financial review that does occur in tandem with all of this as you are going through this initial part of the transition experience, all right? So your OTM is then completed. After your OTM is completed, it will be submitted to me, and I will upload that to the database, the national database. And at that point, you are then live. You're live, all right? In addition to that, I'm going to upload a profile for Christ Church to the TMC, Transition Ministers Conference, which is a select group of provinces and transition officers, because we're always looking for various priests and various parishes to be filled. And you'll also submit a form to the diocese so that you can be listed on the diocesan website as well. All right? So you'll have those 3 places where you'll be marketing, if you will, major pieces. I also encourage search committees to, check out social media, Facebook, TikTok, all that kind of stuff. All of that, whichever makes the most sense. All right, so now you're up and you're live. You've also been working on your web page. See, all these things are happening in tandem. You're working on your web page. And your web page, as you know, is very significant because that's the new front door for churches. That's the new front door, your web page. After all of that has been completed and you're live, now you start getting applications. The search committee gets applicants, all right? The search committee will then let me know who they are interested in talking to. And what I will do is I will do what is known as a red flag check on those people, on those priests. Red flag check is I will get in touch with the transition officer if it's a candidate outside of the Diocese of Washington. I'll get in touch with that transition officer and ask, tell me a little bit about this priest. Are there any Title IVs, any inappropriate conduct, any Title IIIs, dissolution going on, anything kind of shady, kind of all of that, anything about that, and to let me know what the deal is, because if that is the case, then thank you. Next. Okay, next. I'm not in the business of working with you, like, really? No. So we're gonna keep that moving. So that at the same time, Bishop Mary Ann is contacting the bishop of the diocese where those applicants are coming from as well, and having a bishop-to-bishop conversation. So these applicants are being vetted very, very clearly along the way. All right. They will also have background checks done on them as well. One of the things that can come up is, okay, you have an applicant that looks just wonderful on paper, and then you do a background check and you find out that you got a lien against your house, your mama's house, everybody else in your family, all kind of stuff is going on because you can't really handle money. That's a key part of being a rector. So anyway, so there's vetting that is going on. The search committee will get to a point after they've gone through like 2 cycles of interviews getting to the point of actually presenting a slate to the vestry, 2 to 3 people, to the vestry. The vestry then takes it from there. The search committee's work is completed. The vestry takes it from there, and the vestry starts interviewing those people on the slate. Typically, the initial one may be in, maybe a Zoom type of thing. It doesn't have to be. And eventually, to bring somebody in, depending upon how COVID has lifted its restrictions, to come and actually see the sanctuary, see the rectory, meet the people, and that type of piece. So the vestry will then determine, this is the person that we want to call. Mother so-and-so, father so-and-so, this is the person that we want to call. Vestry will inform me about that. I'll inform Bishop Marianne. At that time, Bishop Marianne, a little bit before that, Bishop Marianne will also talk to the candidates themselves on the slate to have a voice-to-voice with them. She likes to have that. And then you're at a point where you're ready to call. You're ready to call. So, one of the things that comes up, it was a question that was raised at 8 o'clock, is how long is this going to take? Well, glad you asked. This is ballpark, truly ballpark for sure, because COVID has really skewed a lot of stuff. But for example, if I'm able to get and find an interim between now and let's say around the middle of June, because this is May, the beginning of May, give me like 46 weeks to find an interim for you to bring on board. Then once the interim is in place, the next step will be for the search committee, which has been authorized already, to start doing its thing. All right, so the search committee starts to meet and start thinking about the instruments that they want to use in order to gather that parish vitality assessment information. They'll get that together, and then they start reaching out to you. All right, depending upon your availability throughout the summer, that could take as long as maybe until the end of August in order to compile all the information, synthesize all the information, do the parish vitality assessment report, and send that to me. All right, it might happen a little bit sooner, but it depends upon how quickly you get things done and how quickly the search committee is able to meet during the summer. All right. So let's say that we get all that completed around the end of August, beginning of September. Then it's time to get the OTM, the parish profile, completed and get that uploaded. So let's say it's going to take about another month to get all of that completed. A lot of your work has already been done with the parish vitality assessment. So you're going to pull a lot of that from there and populate your OTM parish profile. So now we're looking at around the end of the beginning of October or so to actually be live and to start receiving applications. I typically encourage parishes to go for like 6 to 8 weeks to be live to receive applications. That kind of varies. COVID, once again, has kind of skewed some things along the way, but let's say 6 to 8 weeks, which takes you through the month of October and November. At that point in time, you're in the holiday season. So scheduling can be really a challenge then, but hang in there. So you're around the November time frame that then the vestry receives the slate from the search committee. So the vestry gets the slate around the beginning of December and wants to start interviewing as soon as possible, again, scheduling as soon as possible, and have people to come in, view the site, etc. So a call potentially could be made at some point during the early first quarter of 2022. All right. Now that's if all things being considered equal along the way. All right. And so that's a potential timeline that you might look at. I don't want you to rush. I definitely don't want you to rush. I want you to really take your time with respect to the completion of that parish vitality assessment, and even with the search committee, the completion of the parish profile of the OTM. So I'm going to stop talking. Any questions or comments?
Is the entire search committee chosen by the vestry, and has that already happened?
The search committee is selected by the vestry. You have a search chair, all right? I don't know about other members of the search committee at this point, but you do have a search chair that's been assigned. So stay tuned.
There are members of the search committee here, would you stand?
Members of the search committee, would you stand?
We have 3 people there. Paul Nelson, Patrick Braxton, open and Patty Hart. They could make it, and those other three members are nine.
There are 9 members on the search
Nine
committee?
members.
So our search committee is complete.
Okay. That's a big number, but fine, good. Good, good, good.
You said there's 9, the question mark at the end of that. What's that mean? What happens to big search committee?
That's kind of large. That's kind of large for a parish this size. For a parish this size, is that a deal breaker or non-negotiable? No, 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 no. What it means is that you are going to have to be even more intentional about staying in sync with each other, about where you are and thinking about various things. Okay, it's easier to do that if you have a search committee of between four to 6. You know, so, but 9, we're going to work it. We're going to work it.
Question about the interim. The last time we did this, the diocese sent us 3 candidates, and the vestry interviewed them, selected the one that they felt was, doesn't work that way anymore.
That is the real word. I'll go out and spelunk, if you will, for interims, and then I'll send you some candidates and to the vestry, because it's the vestry that appoints, that assigns, that calls the interim, and particularly the senior and junior ward call that interim in consultation with the other vestry. Yes.
You said you had 23 open positions. Are they all in the area, or are they all in the East Coast? And who's the longest position that's still open? Years?
They're all within the Diocese of Washington. They're all within the diocese. Let me see. One that has been open for the longest one that's been open, truly, it's just been about 5 months. 5 months, yeah. But there's a lot of energy. See, the thing about it is that depending upon the condition, the state of the parish, that will determine how readily available the just right interim is for that. For those parishes that experience the dissolution, those are heavy lifts. Those are heavy lifts. And so I need a very special, specifically trained interim. Yes?
Is that an unusual percentage, 23 out of 90?
It's a little bit, it's what, 86, but around that. It's a little bit unusual, a little bit. But what's happened is that a lot of priests are retiring around this time. Also, I'm including priests in charge in that number as well. And many of my priests that have priests in charge letters of agreement, they have reached their 18-month check-in or check-out point. So they're in active transition. And not all of my priests are going to accept a call there in the priesthood. You know? So that's been kind of it. COVID has kind of pushed along some priests to go ahead and retire now as opposed to later. So it's been like a perfect storm. Yes?
We had an interim record passed, and she was not going to be a candidate for the full-time position. Is that something that you will decide, we decide that we get an interim, whether or not they will be a candidate or not?
Here's the deal on that. That is known as an intentional interim. And one of the things about intentional interims is that I typically want to call them, and other transition officers as well, they want to call them into those parishes that are going to be a heavy lift. Because in those parishes, there's typically a lot of systems that need to be just unearthed and moved around. Some personnel removed, terminated. And so intentional interims come in to do just that, along with the pastoral care teams. But they do that. That's their gift and talent of being able to come in, look at systems. This needs to be fixed. This needs to be adjusted. This needs to be da-da-da. Then they're off to the next call. All right. Now, with that being said, should you find and should you experience a dynamic with your interim where you sense that this is the one, and if that interim is willing to engage you in conversation, then the diocese is willing to engage that conversation. Notice how be very careful about my words. Okay. The diocese is willing to engage that conversation. Whether or not that will happen that's part two, okay? Okay, but one of the things that we've learned, my gut with respect to Christchurch Chapel, between just us and all the millions of people that are watching me online, is that I don't know how much of a heavy lift this parish is going to be. So I think that having an interim to come in and do the interim thing will probably be a very nice flow of energy, if you will. And then once that's happened, we'll get some more applications and all that kind of stuff. But you have a lot to offer. You have a rectory. You got people. You got young people. You got sinners who keep marriages together. So there are a lot of good things. I'm getting good positive feedback with respect to the financial piece. I don't speak about that because that's not my lane. I let Canon Andrew Walter do that. He's COO and Chief of Staff for that. But I think that you got some good energy here. I think that it is a time, however, for you to be very intentional about that parish vitality assessment. Who are you? Who are you? What is your identity? What turns you on and what ticks you off? And so one of the ways that you can really get to know you is by it's about deepening or examining the relationships that you currently have with parishioners here in this church. What I mean by that is there's some relationship quotations that I want to share with you, because at the end of the day, the success, if you will, of a transitional season is going to be based upon the texture of relationship health in the parish. That's going to determine all things. So this is a time, again, for this identity piece in understanding who you are and where you are and where God is calling you to be, also to do introspective work, personal introspective work, and finding out what's going on within me. For example, these are 5 quotations that I lift up for you to ponder as we go through this transition experience. Number 1, we repeat what we don't repair. We repeat what we don't repair. That speaks to the elephants in the room. Number 2, your emotional awareness and ability to handle feelings will determine your success and happiness in life. Your emotional awareness and ability to handle feelings will determine your success and happiness in life. Number 3, apologizing doesn't always mean that you're wrong and the other person is right. It just means that you value your relationship more than your ego. Apologizing doesn't always mean that you're wrong and the other person is right. It just means that you value your relationship more than your ego. We are what we repeatedly do. We are what we repeatedly do. If you are repeatedly loving people and giving them mercy and grace, forgiveness and compassion, that's who you are. That's your identity. If on the other hand,
Then that's who you are.
I had one parish, and again, this is just between us and the million people that are watching. And that is, a parishioner came up to me one day and said, Father Rose, I'm sorry, we're clergy killers here. That's not a badge of valor. That's not a badge of valor. No. We're not for the faint of heart. I said, no. You just described yourself as murderers. No. This is not good. No, that's not good. Well, we're very strong. Oh, no. You are what you repeatedly do. And the last quote is from C.S. Lewis, one of my favorite authors and theologians. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. I lift up those relationship quotations for you because, again, this whole transition experience at the end of the day is about how healthy are your relationships within the context of not only this process, this experience, but within the context of what you're going through. What you're going through. You know, one of the most beautiful places to be with respect to experiencing life is the church. It is. One of the most horrific places to be in experiencing life is the church. Okay? Because we bring all of our stuff in here with us. You know, we bring all of our buttons, all that stuff. I tell my couples that I counsel a lot of couples. I told them I'm a therapist as well. I counsel them. And when they come to me, rarely do they come just to say hello and say hey to you. They come like, I'm mad as hell at her and she's not. It's always conflict. And so I tell them when they come into my office, they come in, and the first thing I want you to do is you sit down and to breathe. Breathe. Sit down. The next thing I want you to do is to embrace this idea. While your partner may have pressed your button, your partner did not install your button. While your partner may have pressed your button, your partner did not install your button. And that's a dynamic that we have in the church, that we have in the world, all of that. But to be aware of that when something happens to you, that your button is being pressed, 9 times out of 10, it has nothing to do with the person that triggered you. That person, I call them a blessing with a small b. The person with a small b blessing. And coming and making you aware of the fact that there's something that is still within you that needs healing. That needs healing. Because you wouldn't be affected by it if it didn't need healing. We're all broken. We all have our stuff. Transition time is a time to experience opportunities of putting the mirror in front of ourselves and seeing who we are, embracing whose we are, and being excited about the journey. So, the very last thing I want to ask you is this. I want to check in with you. You heard me talking about all this stuff. How are you feeling right now? I want to check in with you. Good? Feel good?
Yeah.
Positive? Informed.
Hopeful.
The what?
Hopeful.
Hopeful. Excited. Amen. Excited. Hopeful. Peter Gomes. I gotta share this. Hopeful can be a dangerous term to use. I embrace it. Peter Gomes talks about the difference between being hopeful and being optimistic. And I do believe that this is grounded in being hopeful. The difference between being hopeful and being optimistic is that when you are optimistic, you are painting a picture about the way that you would like for the world to be. All right? Versus when you are hopeful, what that means is that you are willing to endure whatever you need to endure in order to experience the divine surprise. That's hope. I'm willing to endure whatever I need to endure in order to see what God has in store for me around that corner out there. So that's my prayer for you here at Christ Church, that you all will remain hopeful and that you will lean into God, and knowing that when bumps come along the way, when it will come, to lean into God and to hold on, enduring whatever you need to endure, knowing that there's something God has in store for you around that corner that you cannot even imagine. Amen? Amen. All right. So, okay. Oh, you're just filling my heart with this water. So, as I told you all beforehand, I'm kind of done now, and I know that the only thing between you and your lunch is me, so I'm exiting the stage left. And I do have cards, though, if you would like to send me an email, give me a call. I have some business cards that feel free to reach out. We'd love to keep in touch. Never say goodbye, just say see you later. All right? Blessings.